recap the last ball game here with OU. A lot of it, I feel like, you never know when you talk in a post-game press conference if you hit on the things that it felt like, and then you go watch the tape and it kind of bears itself out. I think obviously the turnovers were a factor, not necessarily because of the points that came off of it. I thought our defense did a great job of minimizing 3 turnovers to only 7 points. But those are momentum plays, right? They create momentum for you when you can generate them. And so 3-0 in turnovers was an issue. The 9 penalties were an issue because that's out of character for us. I think we're averaging just about 4 penalties a game, and to have 9 in the game. The pre-snap penalties were an issue. Obviously, the unsportsmanlike conduct after the block punt, roughing the punter, which in turn they end up scoring on that drive. So those were issues in the game. 3 red zone trips for us to only come out of those 3 trips with 3 points. Quite frankly, is probably the biggest deciding factor in the game. Because our ability to move the ball wasn't in question, but our ability to put the ball in the end zone was. And then conversely, they have 6 trips into the red area and they score 34 points. So if you just look at it that way and do the math, that was an issue. Obviously, the end of the half and end of the game defense, our inability to get stops there were issues in the game. 5 sacks, that came a variety of ways, putting us behind the chains offensively were hurt. And then conversely, not having very good rush lanes on our end to allow their quarterback to move in the pocket, move up in the pocket, keep his vision was a factor as well. I will say there were some real positives in the game. I know sometimes when you lose, it's easy to look at what went wrong. I think there was a lot of things that went right. Obviously, the fake punt was a great play for us that swung some momentum. The block punt for a touchdown, those are huge plays. And Bert Auburn, what a kick! 47-yard field goal with just over a minute to go. I think getting him back into his fold of what he's capable of being, that's going to be big for us in the second half of the season. I will stand on, I loved our competitiveness, I loved our resiliency, our grit, our toughness, our fight, even when we weren't at our best Saturday. And we weren't. And we just didn't execute the way we're capable of executing, all the way down to the touchdown on the last play. We have a pressure called. We don't cover it right. We don't execute the pressure right. We have 2 guys running in the same gap, and 1 guy can block 2, and it allows the quarterback to hold the ball to throw the touchdown. So I think that the biggest thing that comes out of this for me is, with all that being said, we had a great opportunity to win the game with all the things that I just talked about. And if that's our worst, we're going to be okay. All right, we'll fix the things that need to get fixed as a coaching staff and as a team this week during the bye week, and we'll play good football the second half of the season, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to watching our coaches and our leadership really step up this week, and then as we head into the second half of the season. Obviously bye week. One thing that's going to be big for us this week is getting healthy. We are a little bit banged up as a football team, which is understandable. I think everybody is at this point in the season, so we understand that. But it would be nice to get a little bit more healthy than we are right now. We've got some issues to address collectively and individually. I think we need to create more turnovers from the defensive perspective. We're not causing enough fumbles right now. We want to improve upon that. We definitely want to improve our red zone offense. We've already started working on that as a staff. I think our 2-minute defense needs to be better. So we're diving into that. And I think we need to get more out of our return game, whether it's punt return, kick return. We got too many good athletes right now to not be getting more out of that aspect of the game. So for all that to happen, all of the players need to be coachable. They need to understand why we're trying to get them better and to put forth the right effort to make that happen. So, I think the overriding message is, hey, everything we want out of the season is still right in front of us right now. We got to go handle our business. And the first order of business is having a really good bye week. Like I said, getting healthy, addressing the issues that need to be addressed. And it's a simple adage that I talked to the team about today, but I think this week is important of any is, learn from yesterday, focus on today, prepare for tomorrow. So we got to learn from the loss Saturday, and there's plenty to take from that game to learn from. We got to focus on this week on the things that we need to do, and that'll help prepare us for the second half of the season that I think we'll go out and play good football and see where it all lays out at the end.
Thanks, Coach. Raise your hand if you have a question. We're going to mic you. Start right there in the middle of Eric.
Morning, Steve. I was wondering if you could talk about some of the depth at safety, how it allows you to play multiple guys. And,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could talk about some of the depth at safety, how it's allowed you to play multiple guys, and just an update on Jalen Catalon's status.
Yeah, the depth has been really good for us. The experience that Jaron Thompson provides is helpful. The knowledge base that Michael Taff has is really helpful. The influx of where Keaton Crawford has grown into, I think has been good. I think Catalon, what he brings, from a physicality standpoint, has been good, and I think Derek Williams' future's so bright. So again, we have a lot of really good depth there. Cat, I think right now is kind of day to day to see how he kind of responds coming out of the ball game. We feel his presence when he's out there, but we got to make sure he's healthy enough to go do that. But like I said, I think the depth is helpful for us. We can roll a lot of people, we can rotate a lot of guys, especially predicated on they've all got a little bit of a different skill set. The style of offense that we're playing, we can utilize different people in different combinations at different times.
Over here on your left, Thomas.
Coach, you kind of touched on it. How much do you talk about the big picture with the team? And do the possibilities of getting to the Big 12 title game still, does that kind of ease the sting of Saturday's loss at all?
Well, I think it's helpful. We went into this season with the goal to be champions, and those goals still remain because they're reality, right? I think now more than ever, there's no divisions in the Big 12. The two best teams get to go play for a championship, and we control that. With what we do and how we play. Naturally, nobody likes to lose a game, but we got to go handle our business, and we're more than capable of doing that. And so we do talk about big picture, especially during a bye week, so that they can understand the lay of the land, and then we drill back down into what's of importance right now and what do we need to do to make sure that we put ourselves in that position down the road.
On your right, Onward.
Coach, uncharacteristic breakdowns on defense during that game, more specifically on Oklahoma's last drive when you looked at the film. What was happening? What was the breakdowns that were occurring there?
Yeah, we had the first one was kind of a missed tackle there on the sidelines where it would have been great to wrap the receiver up and keep him in bounds to keep the clock rolling. We let him get out of bounds. The second one was miscommunication in the back end where our two safeties are playing one coverage and everybody else is playing another coverage. And in turn, the same common theme defensively reared its ugly head. We didn't have very good pass rush lanes, and Gabriel was able to really step up in the pocket and give the illusion that he was going to run. And then that forced Jalen Ford to have to try to come up, and then he finds Stoops in behind him for about a 30-yard gain right there. But in reality, it all started with we weren't on the same page from a coverage standpoint. So those were the first two. Naturally, hey, the pass interference is pass interference. We could argue it was or it wasn't. But then in the end, they're scrambling a little bit. There's 15 seconds on the clock. We felt like we had a great call, and we didn't execute it. So that part was probably the most disappointing thing, but that was a little bit of a common theme overall, that if you looked at offense, you looked at special teams, you looked at defense, at different aspects of the game, we didn't execute some things that were, I don't want to call them simple, but things that we've been running now for almost 2.5 months. And so I'd like to think that we can operate better than that. And so we've got to get back to executing at a level that is the standard around here.
On your left, Jeff.
You mentioned improving the red zone offense. Where does that start? How do you do that? Is that changing your big picture vision of what you guys do as you get closer to the goal line, or just drilling what you currently have?
I think it's a lot of things. I think the first aspect of it is, we've already watched every series and every snap we've had all year in the red zone. We watched it in sequence of how it actually has occurred in game. We watched it by concept, the different concepts that we're running. And then ultimately it's, okay, what are we doing to make sure that we're putting our players in the best position to be successful? Sometimes a new style of scheme is in their best interest predicated on what we're getting. Sometimes it's doing what they know really well so that they have answers to the whatever look they could get from a defensive perspective. So there's a lot of levels to that. Then it's looking at the play caller and the sequencing of how I'm calling those plays. But we're drilling down on it to every level. That's what the bye week is really good for. You have more time to do that type of stuff. And I feel very comfortable in the fact that we'll have a good plan in the second half of the season for the players, because like I just told the staff, we're moving the ball too well offensively right now not to have more points on the board, and so we need to be more effective in the red area for sure.
Stay over here on the left, Danny.
Steve, you had an injury update on Jake and then Ryan, and what did you think about the depth behind them on Saturday, and also was Jatavian on a snap count?
Okay, so Jake and Ryan are probably, I'll probably know more on those guys as we get into next week. We're going to hold those guys this week and try to get them as healthy as we can, and I think next Monday I'll have a little better picture of what they will look like from an availability standpoint for Houston. Jatavian really wasn't on a pitch count like X number of plays. We were just trying to monitor him on how he was moving, and I think early on in the game it was getting adjusted to not being 100%, and what did that feel like for him? And then I felt like he kind of got himself warmed up, and then he had a stretch in there that wasn't great again. And so we tried to lean back into Gunnar Helm a little bit more, and then try to just have him available for us in the fourth quarter. So it wasn't so much just an actual number, but it was just trying to monitor how he was playing within the moment. And so, hey, admirable effort by him. I know it was frustrating because he couldn't be at his best. There were some plays that I'm glad he was out there, and some other plays that I'm sure were frustrating for him that he wasn't able to execute the way he's normally able to execute.
What did you think of Conrad?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so, Jake going down put us in a little bit of a pickle because Cole Hudson's really our backup center. So then we got to Connor, who in his first real action in that setting did a nice job. There's plays he'd love to maybe do a little bit better, and he had one flinch of the ball. But in that setting, especially in some of those times when we were backed up in their end with the crowd noise, his snaps were good. I thought he communicated relatively well at the line of scrimmage. So I think, having a guy who didn't prepare to play necessarily in the ball game as the frontline guy, play 74 snaps in the game in that environment, I think for his first real action, that was pretty good.
Back on the right by the cameras, Noah.
What have you learned from about your team since the loss Saturday, and maybe how that's different from kind of the emotion of teams in years past?
I don't know if it's necessarily from years past per se. A couple years ago we lost a heartbreaker, kind of not necessarily the same style of game, but where you have a lead and you lose it there late. I think, last year, having the game go the way that it went, and then how this one goes, I think the key to this game, and I think our players understand that, we got a mature group. They've been that way all year. I think there's obviously a level of disappointment. They wanted to win as bad or more than anybody else. They wanted to play well. Unfortunately, we didn't, and we need to own that. And then, okay, now what are we going to do moving forward to make sure that we handle our business in the second half of the season? And I think our team has a mature perspective on that, and I don't expect anything less than for them to go out and practice well, be coached, try to get better, so that we can play better football in the second half of the season.
Over here on the far left, Kirk.
Yeah, Steve, your game plan was creative as hell with fake punts and Savion Red and Gunnar Helm and all. The 4 tries from the 1.
That sucked.
Yeah.
It
Do you see that as a toughness issue, and that you just felt like you should have been more creative there?
No, I don't think it was toughness at all. you know, the first down play, you know, their kid makes a really nice play. He kind of shoots the gap and gets into Jonathan Brooks's legs. The second down call, that was the sequencing of those two calls that I knew I was going to go with there. And the edge, we just don't get enough of the edge, and we get the ball down to the one again. Quite frankly, if I could do it all over again, I would have changed the third down call. I might have ran what I ran on fourth down, on third down, which I don't know if that's creative enough or not, but I probably would have done that on third down and then gone to something a little bit different on fourth down. So, you know, we call it stubborn, whatever it was. You know, I went back to the first down call on third down and obviously not effective enough. And I'd love for us to execute it a little bit better than we did, but that's the way it goes sometimes, you know. And so, but yeah, it sucked.
Are you unhappy with your interior line, or are they playing up to your?
No, they're doing fine. You know, I think DJ has really come on at guard. You know, I've been very impressed with him in his growth and as a player and his maturity. I think Hayden, you know, he was not 100% Saturday, so I think this bye will be good for him. But he's been a good player, and when Jake's in there, you know, I feel very comfortable with him there as well. So, you know, across the board, those guys were fine. You know, we. Like I said, my job is to put him in the best position to be successful, and I don't know if I did that in totality there on Saturday in that situation in particular.
On your right, Joe.
What does this week look like scheduling-wise, just practice and what you and your staff are going to be able to do this weekend?
Yeah, so we'll, you know, today we did more of a kind of recap of the game, recap of where we're at as a team, what do we need to do moving forward so that everybody's on the same page, and then they did a pretty extensive lift and stretch and stride to kind of get their bodies back. We'll practice Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We'll place a real premium on our twos and threes to make sure that they get the reps they need to keep kind of their football physicality to where it needs to be, but also with our ones dealing and working on some of those issues that we talked about, right? Having a real sense of focus there. Then we'll go out recruiting Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we'll come back as a staff on Sunday and get back in the office, and then Monday we'll be back on the field again.
In the middle, Roger.
Coach, with Quinn's early picks, a lot of quarterbacks maybe that would affect them the rest of the game. I know you only have 6 games left, and that was like 3 years, but what did you learn about the way he bounces back and kind of that even keel that he keeps? Is that what benefits him in situations like that?
Well, I think, you know, for Quinn, let's compare last year to this year, you know, of how far he's come from a maturity standpoint, a confidence standpoint. You know, a year ago, for any quarterback, you throw 2 picks your first 2 drives that you're on the field, that can rattle you pretty good. And the response that he showed to, at one point, I think, complete 19 passes in a row in that game, I thought was really tremendous under some duress. You know, they sacks, he had a fumble in there, he got hit pretty good scrambling, but I thought the poise and composure he showed was indicative of a guy who's growing in confidence, who's maturing, and definitely a guy that I know we can count on at a high level here the second half of the season.
Over here on the far left, Chip.
Steve, at the midpoint, can you kind of size up which position groups you feel like have come the furthest, and an update on Ryan Watts and his importance or how the guys did without him?
Well, I mean, obviously the running back position I'm very pleased with. You know, I mean, I think Jonathan Brooks is one of the leaders in the country right now at running the ball, and I don't think that anybody really thought that would be the case, losing Bijan and Roschon coming off of last year. So I'm really impressed with those guys. I think the tight end position is one that has been an area of strength of ours. I think, you know, with JT and how Gunner's played, I've been impressed with those guys. You know, I think from a receiver standpoint, you know, Xavier's been very consistent. I talked to him about that this morning. I've been really impressed with the level of consistency he's playing the game at right now, and the efficiency. You know, I talked to him. I said, you know, a year ago, for you to catch 8 balls, I'd have to throw you 15 or 16. And this year, I think a week ago, we threw him 7 or 8 balls. He caught 7 or 8. Yesterday or Saturday, he caught 8 balls with 10 targets. So the efficiency in which he's playing and the rapport he and Quinn have has been great. But also, Jay Witt has his 100-yard game Saturday. The week ago, it was A.D. Mitchell with a 100-yard game. So the ball's moving there pretty well. I think from the defensive front, I think our run game defense, I'm super impressed with. Again, this is another game. I think we held both runners at 3 yards or just under 3 yards per carry. But again, we got to clean up our pass rush lanes. The quarterback legs hurt us Saturday. At linebacker, the emergence of Anthony Hill, I think, is really starting to show up. And so hopefully that's something we can build on here in the second half of the season. And then at corner, playing a lot of guys, which has been good. Naturally, Ryan was having a good year. Anytime you have an injury, we want to make sure we get him back, but I want to make sure I get him back healthy. Because when you have a leg injury as a guy who has to run all day, that's not a good thing. And so we got to do everything in our power like we did last week and again this week to see how far we can get him to try to get him available to play against Houston.
You're right, Jeff.
Yes, Sark, you mentioned Anthony Hill. I was wondering if you could elaborate on him and Derek Williams and Malik Muhammad, considering how much they played the last 2 games, and then similar to that, which of those 2s and 3s, those younger guys, are you really excited to get a look at this week?
Yeah, I think all 3 of those guys are right there on the cusp of being really frontline guys for us. I think Derek, the last couple of games, last 3 games, he's had a lot of snaps, and they haven't all been perfect. But what I love about Derek, he's got a high football IQ. He cares. He wants to be a great player, and in my mind, he's going to be a great player for us. And so this experience that he's getting now is huge for our team in the second half of the season. I think Manny Muhammad getting a lot of reps as well. And it's for a lot of young guys, it's about consistency, right? You can't do 2 plays well and then 1 not. And so we're trying to fight the consistency. And then with Anthony, his ability to erase plays, right? Maybe he's not always right, but he's got the speed and physicality to make up for that, whether it's rushing the passer or when the quarterback scrambles, he can go run him down. And so that's been really effective. I think probably the guy I know offensively that I'm really excited about is Jonte. I was kicking myself. I probably should have played him more Saturday. I think that he's earned it. He's practiced well, and so hope to see more of him. And I think that he's probably the main one. DeAndre Moore's probably close right there too. So those 2 guys stand out to me. And then obviously I think the other guy, which we've seen a lot of, but I'd like to see him get back to being 100% healthy, is C.J. Baxter. So a lot of young guys, and then a lot of other guys that are developing. And we take a lot of pride in the development of our players. Even though they're redshirting, we still work with them a lot. And so there's a lot of the guys. I'd hate to be remiss if I left some of them out, but there's a lot of these guys that are kind of on the come here that if we can just keep working with them, maybe it won't all pay out for them this year, but over the long haul and into next season, I think it will pay dividends for us.
By the cameras, Bob.
Sark, when you got here, obviously Jonathan Brooks wasn't a guy that you recruited here, but came in, I think, the summer of 21. What do you remember seeing from him then, and sitting behind Bijan and Roshan, the way he's been able to develop into what he is now?
Well, he was always a really smooth runner in high school. When I got here, Coach Drayton had recruited him, and Brandon Harris had done a really good job of them, and they were really, really excited about him. We thought, man, we got one with this kid. And so when he got here, the natural running instincts that he had were always there. Obviously there's the development piece in the weight room and getting stronger and get more physical. But he's always been kind of an even-keeled demeanor guy. He's never been the guy that's going to stand out because he's telling jokes or laughing. He's always been very even-keeled. And I watched how he dealt with some adversity off the field in his life, and I just felt like, man, he sat behind 2 guys and really paid attention. and listened and learned, and his style of play now has grown even as the season's gone on. He's a physical runner. We know we can count on him at the most difficult moments, and that he's going to come through. And that's kind of how it's gone for him. And so I just can't say enough good things about JB and how far he's come and what he means to our team. Not only schematically, but I think from a mentality standpoint about perseverance and toughness. And he's going to play a big part for us here over this next 6 ball games.
Coach, you mentioned the end-of-game defense. What could have been done differently to put more pressure on Dylan Gabriel in that last drive and also in general over the course of the game?
Well, I think one thing we have to be careful of is everybody wants, and we all want, to pressure the quarterback. And sometimes in game, trying to sack the quarterback maybe isn't always the best thing to do, because that's when you can get out of your rush lane and you can create a really big B gap for a quarterback to go run through. Or you try to come underneath the tackle and now you let the quarterback flush out to his left and buy more time. And in turn, now you have to cover longer, right, down the field. So I think we need to be mindful of how we rush and who we're rushing against. I think that's one thing that we can improve upon. And then the second thing is just making sure we're on the same page in the secondary. We can't have, two critical breakdowns in the secondary in that type of a game, in that moment of the game. We need to all be on the same page, and that goes back to communication and making sure that we're on the same page and operating the calls that we have.
2 last ones, Onward and Roger.
Coach, you talked about the things you could have done differently on goal line that you kind of evaluated yourself. Hindsight being what it is there anything you looked at from an analysis standpoint and thought maybe you could have done differently from a time management standpoint, and maybe especially even on that last drive that you guys had that led to the field goal?
Ours or theirs?
Yours.
No, I would have handled it that drive exactly the same. The first down call, we had an RPO called, which, we had been effective with the RPOs during that drive and had been really effective all day with them. And, their safety did a good job. Quinn kind of got stuck in the middle of pulling the ball, and then the window wasn't there for the throw, and we took a sack. And so at that point, now in my mind, where we were really trying to go score and make that the last possession of the game, what I felt like was really important was we got to make sure we get a field goal out of this because we were playing second and long football. And so we threw kind of a bubble screen to Xavier, which put us in a 3rd and long. And then coming off that 3rd and long, I knew just where Burt was at. I watched pregame. I knew exactly kind of what we needed to get to. And so the yard marker was really critical for us to get the lead in the game. You throw a pass, it's incomplete. Now you're out of field goal range. You can't make that kick from there. So predicated on the defense they were out there, I wouldn't have changed a thing as it pertained to that drive.
Last one, Roger.
Sark, as a coach, do you find there's a process of dealing with this from being a young coach to an older coach and just being able to really wash it away and mentally move on? Because, human nature is not that way sometimes.
Well, losing sucks. I'll call it like that. It's not fun for anybody. It's not fun for the players. It's not fun being a coach when you lose a ball game that you feel like you could have won. But inevitably, you got to focus on the task at hand. And so I don't know if you ever just wash it away. Hopefully you can take losses and it can fuel you to, whether it's work a little harder, help the next person, whatever that looks like. But I'm hopeful we don't just walk out of that stadium Saturday and then back here in Austin and leave the game up there. I hope we kind of carry this one with us for a little bit. And I hope it fuels us to be even better than we can be moving forward.